Pethara shot up on her cot in a cold sweat. The warm summer breeze drifted in through the window and stirred the sprigs of dry hair atop her drenched forehead. Her chest heaved heavily as she tried to catch her breath. She sat there in silence while the last remnants of grogginess cleared from her mind.
Was it a nightmare? No, this is something else.
She could sense an immense source of power radiating nearby. Wave after wave of the magical energy slammed against Pethara's body as she wrestled her breathing under control.
Where in the name of Mo is that coming from?
She tossed her blanket aside and swung her legs over the edge of her cot and snuck through the door of the cabin and out into the bowels of the ship. Without the wall of her room to buffer the waves of energy emanating from this unknown source, they began to hit her with a much stronger force. Pethara cringed and peeked down the hallways of crates and supplies, but saw no one else outside of their cabins. Footsteps above Pethara's head informed her that there were still 2 men active on the deck. One was tapping his foot at the helm, and the other was patrolling about. Slowly and carefully, Pethara began to sling through the ship towards this mysterious source. A pit of nervousness began to rise in her stomach as she crept across the creaking wooden planks. She could sense that this magical connection was stronger than her own, and it frightened her. She swallowed hard. Her mouth was dry and tasted of old mead. Though she could sense that this unknown power surpassed her own, Pethara was finding it difficult to attribute it to any of her fellow passengers. She had studied them all, one by one, as they had scurried about the ship earlier in the day. Tavomir and Emery were stronger in connection than the few other passengers she had sensed magical energy within. The sole exception had been that of Rila, who seemed to be nearly as powerful as a child. Pethara had sensed no connection carrying such strength aboard the Undine before now.
How could I have missed this? What could this person possibly be casting which would cause such ripples to pass throughout the ship? And who could be so powerful as to cause this in the first place?
Abruptly, the waves of energy ceased. Pethara could feel an echoing tingle on her flesh where the vibrating waves had once been. She stood with her feet locked onto the wooden floor of the hallway.
You shall not slip my gaze so easily,
Pethara announced angrily as she reached out her hand. She closed her eyes and focused her powers to sense for any trace of residual energy that might lead her to the now inactive power source.
Oh, feck!
Pethara swore angrily as she dropped her arm to her side. She stood there for a moment, still and silent as her mind raced. She couldn't imagine how such a powerful magical connection could have boarded the ship without her detecting it. It left her frustrated with her failure and angry that she was unable to hunt it down before it disappeared. But most of all, Pethara was afraid of the unknown spell which had been cast on her ship, in the middle of the ocean and in the middle of the night. Whatever this source had been, whomever it was that held this connection to the Titan gods, had been able to hide their power from Pethara. That was something she had thought that only the matriarchs of Mo could accomplish, and she had been under the impression that no human could hold such a connection to the gods. However, she had noticed no other more on board the ship. Pethara would normally have assumed this sort of spell to be the dark magic of the Bokenite, yet the energy that she had felt radiating throughout the ship had felt more alien than foul. Feeling confused but tired, Pethara finally relented and turned back to her quarters. The further that she traveled from the eastern continent, the more uneasy Pethara was beginning to feel. Ever since she had stepped foot on this rotting floater, something had felt wrong. Pethara pulled open the door to her cabin and slunk back inside. With a sigh, she crawled back into bed and slid under the covers. She stared at the rafters of her ceiling, mind lost in looping ponderings, until sunlight began to stream across her room.
I see there is a new human observing our journey through the looking glass. Perchance you plan on pawing the like button? That's right. Now paw at the subscribe button too. Ow. That's a good human. Smart human. Would the human like an extra treat today? Well, it just so happens that I've added a link to the description box for you that grants you magical passage onto our Patreon page. There you can join our fight against the evil forces of Bokken, and you shall gain access to our Patreon-only videos and content. Now, shoo, human, go away. I have bigger fish to fry. Shoo!